Loads on the way. We'll also have updates on Ekitike, on Sesko, on Luis Diaz. Plus, we will hear from Kieran Tierney on his return to Celtic. As you can see, these two fine young gentlemen are here alongside me to talk you through it. Dharmesh Sheth and Mark McAdam. Yeah, you two. You're the only two here. What a way to spend my Friday evening with you two guys. I'll tell you what, let's start with Bryan Mbeumo, Dharmesh, because it feels like there's been a big breakthrough in the last few hours.
We should really file this one under saga, I think, the length of time that this one has taken. The entire transfer window, we have been talking about Bryan Mbeumo's potential move from Brentford to Manchester United. Well, there has been a breakthrough, as you mentioned. Manchester United have agreed a deal with Brentford for Bryan Mbeumo. The deal in total is worth £71 million. So the agreement is for a £65 million initial payment plus £6 million in add-ons. The fixed fee, that's the £65 million, will be paid in 4 instalments. What happens next? Well, Mbeumo is expected to take a medical in the coming days, may even be as soon as this weekend. And all being well, there's now growing optimism that everything could and should be sorted in time for Mbeumo to be part of the squad that flies out to the United States for the club's pre-season tour, and that is on Tuesdays when they fly out. So Mbeumo on course now to become Manchester United's third signing of the window after Matheus Cunha arrived from Wolves for £62.5 million. And, of course, Diego Leon, although that one was kind of agreed in January but finalised in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, you sense that could be a big signing for Man United. It will get a lot of attention. But how about from a Brentford point of view? I've got a lot of Brentford fan friends and they're saying to me, well, Thomas Frank's gone and Mbeumo's about to go. What about Yoane Wissa? Surely we can't let him go as well.
Yeah, well, you'd imagine that off the back of losing someone like Bryan Mbeumo, there would be a reluctance to sell any more players, particularly when they've already lost a number of key first-team players. However, whilst the stance from Brentford is Yoane Wissa is not for sale, when you're talking transfers, you always have to caveat it with, well, if someone puts this amount of money on the table, Brentford may find it difficult to resist. Now, we know that there is a lot of interest in Yoane Wissa. We know that Nottingham Forest failed with an attempted bid in January and earlier in this summer. We know that there is interest from Tottenham Hotspur and Newcastle United as well. But so far, Brentford have been able to resist any potential offers from these other football clubs. We know that he has 1 year plus a club option further year on his contract, which gives them a slight advantage in this situation. He's 28 years old, so he's getting to the latter stages of his career. And of course, it's one of those players that's been so influential. He's been so special under Thomas Frank whilst he's been at Brentford and developed into a really important figure for them. You can understand why Brentford say, we don't want to sell all of our star players. We know that that could be leaving us in a perilous position if we were to do that. So therefore, the price tag may up a little bit from what it was this time last week. Now that they're going to lose Mbeumo to Manchester United, Brentford will say, well, actually, it would have to be something rather special for us to accept a deal for Yoane Wissa. So therefore, no thanks, we need to keep you. The fact that they've got that club option year in his contract would suggest they may be able to sit down and say, look, we need you to stay now, but this time next year, if you get the opportunity to go to a bigger club and play Champions League football, we promise, gentleman's agreement, we won't stand in your way. One to keep an eye on, but very different stances there, not for sale. Let's see what gets put on the table. That might change the dynamic of this situation.
Another one to keep an eye on as well, though, because Brentford, in this summer that they've had where Thomas Frank has left to become the head coach at Tottenham Hotspur, their captain, Christian Norgard, has left to go to Arsenal. Bryan Mbeumo on the verge of joining Manchester United, and all this talk about Yoane Wissa as well. They won't be sleeping. Brentford are a very sensible club, and they always seem to find a way.
They always
when
regenerate,
players
don't they?
Of course they do. Exactly the right way to describe it. And they will be looking around to replace these players. So they don't have been sitting there thinking we're going to not do anything about Bryan Mbeumo. And if it was to happen really last minute, what are they going to do replacement-wise? So they are looking at other players. Omari Hutchinson is one player that they are looking at from Ipswich. If you go back to Tuesday, They did try and sign Amari Hutchinson from Ipswich Town on Tuesday. There was a relegation clause in place at £35 million that expired at 5 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. Now, Brentford, I'm told, did meet that £35 million relegation clause, but not at the terms that Ipswich Town wanted. So maybe Ipswich Town wanted all the money up front or in minimal instalments, whereas Brentford weren't willing to meet those certain conditions. So as a result, Ipswich Town now have the control of that situation. They can ask for what they want. They don't want to sell Amari Hutchinson. However, they are expecting Brentford to come back in with an improved offer.
And just on the Brentford thing, Dharmesh touched upon it, at how well run they are, how clever they are. They've used data before many other football clubs. They've recently sold 25% of their shares to a Hollywood film producer for £100 million. So that's not a bad injection of cash should they want to go into the window during this summer and reinvest that money in bringing new faces into the football club. So, yeah, be interesting to see how they move off the back of what's happened in the last few weeks.
Let's take it back to United briefly until we move on, Dharmesh. United already have an out-and-out number 9 in Rasmus Højlund.
Yes.
Does the manager want another one? Or a replacement?
What we should say, first of all, is the focus totally at Manchester United right now is, number one, completing the deal for Bryan Mbeumo, and then it will move on to player exits to maybe regenerate the squad again later in the window, but they will need to fund that somehow, and that will mean selling players. And we've been speaking about the 5 players that have been told you can delay your return to the training ground while you sort out your future. I'm sure we'll talk about that later on in the show. But the number 9 situation is something that won't go away. We have been talking about it throughout this transfer window, that one of the priority positions for Manchester United was to bring in a number 9. They have explored the conditions for deals on a number of players. Aston Villa's Ollie Watkins, Sporting's Victor Gyökeres, who is clearly on his way to Arsenal now, and also Chelsea's Nicholas Jackson. I'm told another one to keep an eye on as well, which is a player that Manchester United have had a long-standing interest in, and one we tend to talk about nearly every single transfer window, not just with United but with Arsenal as well. It's Benjamin Sesko from RB Leipzig. This is an interest that has gone back to the days when Sesko was at RB Salzburg, and I was told then, back in 2022, I think, that it was a longer-term project that Manchester United were looking at with regard to someone like Benjamin Sesko. But to reiterate again, the focus at the moment, Mbeumo in and some players out.
OK, let's focus on one transfer that has gone through today. Mbeumo, we think, might happen fairly soon. But this one is official now. Dharmesh, you kick us off, and then Mark, you can chip in on this as well. Noni Madueke to Arsenal is done. And it's always... We've been talking about this for a few days now, haven't we?
We have, and it's no surprise. Arsenal announced this at 5 o'clock this afternoon, that Noni Madueke from Chelsea has arrived. He's signed a long-term contract. We understand that contract is 5 years. Just a reminder of that deal, it's in total worth £52 million. So Arsenal will pay Chelsea £48.5 million in an initial payment or a fixed fee, plus a further £3.5 million in performance-related add-ons. He was at Chelsea for 2.5 seasons. Chelsea bought him from PSV Eindhoven for £29 million. So if he was to fulfil all of these conditions, Chelsea would make around £23 million on the Noni Madueke deal. Now, just an interesting point moving forward, Arsenal fly out to Asia tomorrow for their pre-season tour. Noni Madueke, we are told, will not be part of that squad. That's because at the end of the season, of course, he was still with Chelsea and he played a part in their FIFA Club World Cup. So hence he's been given a little bit of extra time off before he rejoins the Arsenal squad, we think, in early August. Just on the deal itself, this is another example of the moves that the new sporting director, Andrea Berta, is making. They've already made now 4 signings that have been announced. There are more to come as well. So he was key in those negotiations, as you'd expect. And also key in the negotiations was Mikel Arteta, in particular with the talks he had with the player to convince the player, this is where I see you, this is where I want you to be. So Noni Madueke officially now an Arsenal player.
Mark, where does Madueke fit in to this Arsenal squad, this Arsenal team? Does he make the strongest starting 11?
Well, it depends how you look at it, and ultimately Mikel Arteta can answer that question. I think one of the key things that we do know, and one of the reasons why Arsenal targeted Noni Madueke, is his versatility. He can play in multiple positions across the front line, which is something that's hugely important. Andrea Berta, the sporting director, has been a big fan of his for some time as well, and he was a driving force in getting the deal over the line. We also know that Noni Madueke is that sort of right-sided player with a left foot. So whilst Bukayo Saka was injured for a chunk of last season, Arsenal lost that spark that he brought to the side, and therefore they brought someone in who can essentially play, but also provide that little bit of something different if Bukayo Saka were to get injured for the forthcoming season. He's 23 years old. He's already got 170 plus appearances under his belt for a club. So that's a massive thing as well. He's got that experience. He had 27 starts in the Premier League for Chelsea last season as well. So he understands the level. He knows what the Premier League's all about. Obviously, he's worked his way into that England setup. And for him personally, he's going back home. He started his career at Tottenham Hotspur when he was a youngster. So therefore, you've got someone who's from around North London. So anytime you get the opportunity to go back home and be where you grew up, is never a bad thing, and that's why this probably just fits for both Arsenal and Noni Madueke. When you look at the stats as well from him last season, he was effective. We've got a comparison here. Obviously, Tottenham have been in the market to sign a new winger. They went for Mohamed Kudus of West Ham, and obviously Madueke now at Arsenal. And obviously both very similar with the price tag, 52 and 55 million. And then when you look at the output from Noni Madueke, obviously both with 32 appearances, a couple more goals for Noni over Mohamed Kudus. The assists very similar, big chances created, and Jules one very different. So very different profile of player in one respect, but you can see the numbers stack up there. Be interesting to see if we're sat here in 12 months' time saying which one of those two players has been the most effective for their respective clubs. But it certainly looks like a really smart and sensible piece of business from Mikel Arteta.
What is interesting is the price as well, because more and more you see clubs, when they value a player and how much they want for a player when they sell them, they look at the market and how other players have been valued. So, for example, Mark mentioned it there, the comparison between Kudus and Madueke, around the same price tag, 55 million for Kudus, 52 for Madueke. Anthony Elanga was almost an identical price as Noni Madueke. So Chelsea will go into the market. If Arsenal say we want to pay this much, Chelsea could turn around and say, well, actually, he started this many games in the Premier League last season. Anthony Elanga has gone for this much money. Kudus is valued at this price. So this is how we're going to base our pricing on Noni Madueke. And Arsenal had to say, well, that's actually fair, because we would probably have done the same thing.
Yeah. And it means that we, at the end of the season, or the end of their time there, we can compare them quite accurately, because they're all going for roughly the same kind of money. We mentioned Spurs there, and their new manager, Thomas Frank, faced the media this afternoon for the first time, and he's got ambitious plans for the new season.
It's the easy part now, huh? It's the honeymoon. Everyone is happy, the sun is shining. We haven't played a game yet, but it's super exciting. It's a massive club, a huge club in England and in the world. I'm super excited myself about it. Everyone have been kind and friendly, open-minded. So, yeah, it feels good, and the best thing is it feels natural. And why not? That's what I've done. I don't know for how many years. It's football. It's good players. It's preparing them with a good staff and make sure we are ready to hit the ground running.
I'm sure Spurs fans are very excited for this new era, and they would have been excited a few days ago as well, because Kudus was through the door, and then everyone thought Morgan Gibbs-White is coming as well. Spurs are being really active really early in the transfer window. And then that just seems to have ground to a halt. What's happening with Gibbs-White?
Yeah, well, you have to feel for Spurs fans, because Morgan Gibbs-White is an outstanding talent and a real player as well that could be something special in North London. And it looked like, and we were talking on transfer shows about, right, this is done, the activation is sorted. The release clause is this amount. Tottenham are willing to pay it. And as you can imagine, it was one of the first questions that Thomas Frank was asked in his first ever Tottenham Hotspur press conference today. So I tell you what, let's just find out exactly what Thomas Frank had to say when he was asked about Morgan Gibbs-White coming to North London.
I'll not speak about players that is not mine. I think I'm doing 2 exceptions, and they're getting older. Is Ronaldo and Messi. The rest, I'll just speak about the players who's inside and in the squad of Tottenham.
Yeah, so there we go. Doesn't want to talk about players that aren't at the football club. No surprise there, but we'll continue to try throughout the course of the summer to find out what's going on. So what do we know? There's still no movement in this situation. Obviously, it's got a little bit unsavoury, should we say, between the two clubs. Obviously, Evangelos Marinakis, the owner of Nottingham Forest, very unhappy. There has been reports about legal action between Forest and the various parties involved. You'd imagine that this one may take some time if it were to be reignited. Obviously, there's not an ideal situation there at all. Just a couple of other lines to update you on. Obviously, there has been reports today that Spurs are interested in Bournemouth defender Ilya Zabani. However, I don't think that's something that would progress based on the information we have this evening. And it's important to point out as well that Thomas Frank, Tottenham, have spent over £100 million already in this window. If they were to get Morgan Gibbs-White, that would take it to £160 million. Of course, Kevin Danso, Matthijs Tel, Mohamed Kudus, who we've been speaking about, and Kota Takai as well. So their investment already to this point has been significant.
A lot of clubs' investment has been significant. Clubs are putting their hands in their pockets so far in this window. Plenty on the way from us. We're going to talk strikers next. We got the latest on Gyökeres and Ekitike, plus where that leaves Newcastle. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Transfer Show. We're going to talk strikers now. Quite a few in demand. We're going to start with Ugo Ekitike, Mark, to Liverpool. We thought maybe a few days ago we might be Ekitike to Newcastle. But how close is the move to Liverpool now?
Yeah, not close at the moment. And this is one of the things you find, particularly Dharmesh will be able to agree with me on this one. Reporting about transfers now is becoming such a difficult job because there is so much noise on social media. And if you were to believe everything that's on social media, you'd think, oh, the deal to Newcastle was done and dusted. Oh, no, the deal to Liverpool's done and dusted. Hold your horses. Liverpool fans, calm down. It's progressing, but it's not happening at any pace. And Liverpool are comfortable with that at the moment. There are talks between Eintracht Frankfurt and Liverpool over the signing of Hugo Ekitike. News understands there's been no offer at this stage. We understand the package that's being discussed is around £75 million. Something that's really important to remember is Eintracht Frankfurt are really meticulous about the way they do business, particularly when it comes to selling players. They like a lot of things to be in place. They like to know that they're getting the value they want for the player, and they don't sell any other circumstances. The key thing that Liverpool have on their side is that Hugo Ekitike wants to join them. He's made it quite clear privately that he would be absolutely open to joining the Premier League champions. He's excited about what they're doing there. You look at the players he'd play alongside, Florian Wirtz, which potentially could be a Premier League record. You've got Virgil van Dijk at the back and Mo Salah on the right-hand side. This is an exciting team to be a part of at the moment. So the fact that the player has ambitions to join them, should the two clubs get on the same page with regards to a potential deal. We did report yesterday on Sky Sports News that personal terms are not going to be a problem for the player. So therefore, again, we know that that step is progressing nicely. And one thing that is important to point out is that this potential purchase for Liverpool, regardless of the 200-odd million they've already spent, is not dependent on any players leaving the football club. So Liverpool are not in a position where they have to sell players to go and buy Ekitike. This works independently of any potential deal. The key thing that Arne Slot likes about the player, and he has been a target for Liverpool over the course of this summer, is his versatility. He can play as a 9, he can play out left, he can play out on the right-hand side, he can play as a 10. He brings that ability to adapt and play in multiple different roles. And that's something that's really attractive for Liverpool.
Yeah, he played with Marmoush, didn't he, at
Yes.
Eintracht Frankfurt, together, the two of them. Where does this leave Newcastle, though? Because they clearly want to bring a striker in, otherwise they wouldn't have shown such an interest in Ekitike, and that's been for some years now as well. So what are their options now? Where does this leave them?
Well, obviously, it's been a frustrating summer for Newcastle. On one hand, you could turn around and say, well, the fact that you are losing out on players that are going to Real Madrid or Chelsea or Liverpool shows that actually your recruitment and your scouting is spot on. You're targeting the right type of players because they are players that are going to establish Champions League clubs that are at the top of the tree when it comes to, you know, the footballing pyramid. So therefore, you're actually getting a lot right. And when you lose out on these players to these types of clubs, there's not much you can do about it, really. It's just unfortunate. So, on one hand, really positive because their recruitment has been sensational since Eddie Howe went into the football club. Some of the players they've signed, some of the players they've developed, the football they've been playing and the way they've been operating is all top class. But right now, Newcastle fans are probably sat there going, I'm getting frustrated and annoyed because this is not the type of summer I was expecting. And Eddie Howe would probably say exactly the same thing. Frustrating that we're not getting these deals over the line, but there's nothing more we can do. We're presenting a brilliant club and great packages to these players. If they decide to go elsewhere, there's nothing we can do about that. Back to the drawing board as far as they're concerned with the number 9. They had a list. Eddie Howe doesn't operate with lists that are 6, 7, 8 players deep. He would rather not sign someone than go and get someone who isn't the right type of player for that club and that project. So therefore, there aren't huge amounts of players in reserve that they're looking at. They do have other targets that they will be looking at. They do have a lot of positions they're looking to strengthen. Obviously, the fact that they've got Anthony Elanga in is a massive plus because he's a player that's versatile and can play in multiple roles. And they do still have Alexander Isak. And I think if you get to September the 1st, 7 o'clock, I believe, the deadline closes, Alexander Isak still being a Newcastle player would be a massive boost. And I think that's the situation as you look at it.
One interesting aside, seeing as it's Friday, and I can't take credit for this. This is this man behind us here, Hugo Ekitike. This has come from our gaffer, Simon Cooper, the producer, in the gallery just now.
Yeah, he'll enjoy the
He
name
pointed
check.
out earlier that Ekitike backwards is...
Oh, my God, I can't think.
Ekitike.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Stunning.
Is that
I
a
like that.
palindrome? Is that what they call it? No.
Who?
I don't know. Yes, palindrome.
And can you think of any?
Yes.
Can you think of any others?
OK, I'll tell you what I think of one. Eberici Eze.
Eze?
Eze.
You'll go?
Matt?
Yeah. Does it have to be a footballer?
Yeah.
Dudu. There's a goalie called Dudu.
Yeah, but then that would be Oud backwards, wouldn't it?
Oh, this is hurting my head.
Don't let the team
I tell you what, let's move on to Victor Gyökeres, OK? He's got a nice, simple name. You mentioned you mentioned before Brian Mbeumo was a bit of a saga. Well, Arsenal fans are now saying this is a little bit of a saga, isn't it? Because
I mean,
what's the hold-up here? The big chunk of the fee has been agreed, so why is it taking so long to get this last bit done?
Not so much Gyökeres on its own a saga. I think you could class the fact that Arsenal have been looking for a striker for a few windows now as a saga. With regard to Gyökeres, Arsenal are finalising now. It's understood the details on the conditions attached to the add-ons. That's what's being discussed just at this moment in time. So there's a £55 million initial fee that has been agreed with a further £8.5 million in performance-related add-ons. And it's those add-ons and how they're paid and how achievable they are is where these discussions are being centred on. Gyökeres playing some part in the club's pre-season tour. That can't be ruled out at the moment. Will he fly out with tomorrow?
They're leaving on Saturday, aren't they?
That doesn't look likely at this stage because it hasn't fully been agreed. But him playing some part in the tour hasn't been ruled out. As you said, they fly out tomorrow. But with regard to Gyökeres...
Should Arsenal fans be worried that this deal might not happen?
I don't think so, no. There's no information that I've been given that would suggest that there should be a worry here. All of the worries and the concerns were in the past couple of weeks when there was such... it was so unsavoury between Gyökeres and Sporting Lisbon. He thought he could leave for less than £60 million. The president was very public in saying there's no way he's leaving for less than £60 million. And in the end, Arsenal have struck a deal where probably they're happy with the amount they're paying. even though it's less than probably what Sporting wanted, but Sporting have got the benefit of the fact that Gyökeres's representatives have waived their fees. Hence why everybody, club-wise, looks like they've got what they want within this deal, which is £55 million plus £8.5 million in add-on. So around £63.5 to £64 million is what this deal will take in total. I think it is a case at the moment of when and not if Gyökeres will officially become an Arsenal player.
Did you want to come in there? You're just looking at me.
I love Victor Gyökeres. I've said it on this show so many times. I might even go as far as to say I could see him getting 30 goals in his first season at Arsenal.
Really?
I watched him at Coventry. I was aware of him at Brighton. I think his physicality is sensational. I think he's just proven that he's a goal machine in the last 2 seasons in Portugal. I think he is the missing piece that Arsenal fans have been crying out for. I think they'll love him, and I can't wait to see him in the Premier League, just waiting for the deal to get done.
It is fascinating to see how he does, even if you're not an Arsenal fan, just to see how he copes with that step up in level, because it feels like he's been wanting it for a long time and building up to it. Right, coming up, we're going to think of some more palindromes, or I'm going to try and do that anyway in the next few minutes.
That is the thing.
Yeah, palindrome, that's what it's called. We'll hear from Noni Madueke on his move from Chelsea to Arsenal, and we've got more from Manchester United, plus Leeds, Sunderland and West Ham. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Transfer Show. Arsenal have confirmed the signing of Noni Madueke from Chelsea in a deal worth £52 million. The winger told us he can't wait to get going and he is happy playing on either flank.
I can't wait to get back and meet all the boys and train.
So what have the last few days been like while you finalised the deal?
Yeah, just been relaxed. Just waiting for the green light, and yeah, when I came in today, it all felt real, and I'm really happy and really proud. So it's a great moment for me.
So have you spoken to some of your England teammates, the Arsenal boys, about what it's like here? Have they welcomed you yet?
Yeah, definitely. I've spoken to Dec, Miles, Bukayo, even Urian as well, and they all say amazing things, obviously, about the club and the culture here and how warm it is and how much of a family it is.
Is having that versatility something that you pride yourself on, something that you've worked hard on?
Yeah, no, definitely. I try and be a dual threat from the left and from the right. Of course, it's a little different when I play on the left or when I play on the right. But yeah, I try to be a threat on both sides, and it doesn't really matter to me where I play.
Well, Madueke and Arsenal's potential new signing, Victor Gyökeres, have one thing in common. They both shoot more than the current Arsenal squad. Gyökeres averages over 4 shots a game, Madueke over 3. Only Saka shoots as often. So Arsenal strengthening, and Manchester United have agreed a deal worth £71 million with Brentford to sign Bryan Mbeumo. All going well, he could be part of the squad that goes to the United States next week. We understand the add-ons are very achievable.
You're looking at somebody who understands the league. Far too many times Man United have brought players in from, other top leagues in Europe that haven't hit the ground running. They don't understand what the physicality is like and being able to demand of the Premier League. Bryan Mbeumo does not fall into that category. He's strong, he's quick, he's powerful, he has an eye for goal, he likes to attack space, and he works his socks off as well. He brings intensity into that forward line for Manchester United. And along with Matheus Cunha, it's actually really exciting, dare I say it. Man United still need an awful lot of things to be fixed. But this, I think, will go a long way along with Matheus Cunha to really strengthening that top end of the pitch, where it's just been so dire for Manchester United over the last, even when Erik ten Hag was here, the last 3 or 4 years.
Well, Mbeumo overperformed his expected goals by more than any other player in the Premier League last season. He scored 20 goals from an XG of just 12.3. Matheus Cunha, who's already made the move to Manchester United, is also in the top 3. He overperformed his XG by nearly 7 goals. Chris Wood, Jarrod Bowen and Alex Iwobi also make the top 5. Right, let's run through some other deals for you, including a couple of the promoted sides in Sunderland and Leeds. Let's start with Sunderland, Mark. And they've been pretty active, haven't they? And looks like they're going to be active again. Yeah, they've been one of those sides that have been promoted from the Championship, and they've really attacked the transfer market. They've spent a huge sum of money. The latest deal that's getting close to being sorted is Armand Laurienté from Sassuolo. We know that there's been a fee agreed between the two clubs, which we understand to be 17.5 million. He's going to sign a 5-year contract. His medical is happening this weekend, and that takes Sunderland's spending in this summer's window to in excess of £110 million. Yeah, they're giving it a go, aren't they? You can't really criticise them for that. Darmish, West Ham, have they finally got hold of a right-back?
Yeah, I mean, they've strengthening in both full-back areas, actually. El Malik Hadji Diouf arrived from Slavia Prague for a £19 million earlier on this week, and now they have an agreement in principle to sign Kyle Walker-Peters. Remember, Kyle Walker-Peters is a free agent after his contract at Southampton expired earlier on this month. He actually came close to joining, managed, of course, by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, only for that deal to fall through at the very last minute. Fulham had held talks with Kyle Walker-Peters and his representatives earlier on in this transfer window, and that was while Kenny Tete was almost certain to leave the club, but Tete has since signed a 3-year contract at Fulham, and so they didn't need another right-back. But it looks like West Ham United have grabbed that opportunity, and it looks like he could be on his way to the London Stadium. Yeah, we mentioned Sunderland there. How about another promoted side in Leeds? I mean, they've been fairly active as well, and another possible incoming, perhaps? Yeah, just a matter of time now before this one gets confirmed. Sean Longstaff reported a few days ago that he'd left the Newcastle United Austria training camp. He's finalising that move, which we know to be worth 12 million plus some add-ons. So Daniel Farke getting some really important Premier League experience in Sean Longstaff. Yeah, Sean Longstaff could be going to Leeds. Not a long way to go from Newcastle. What about Arsenal? Arsenal, we just talked about it there. They're going to be very active. They could bring, say, 6 players in this summer. So I presume they're going to have to be some outgoings. And who might they be? Yeah, one of them is Reiss Nelson, actually, because Fulham continues with Arsenal over the signing of Reiss Nelson. You remember he actually went on a season-long loan to Craven Cottage last week. Did his hammy. Last season, rather, but got a really bad hamstring injury, ended his season effectively in December. But Marco Silva had seen enough, and he wanted to bring him back. So the talks are over another loan, but it's expected that Arsenal will want to negotiate a permanent element to that deal, simply because he's entered the final 2 years of his contract. So they don't really want him having another straight season-long loan, coming back with just 1 year left on his contract, because they don't know what kind of market value Reiss Nelson would have there. There are other players that Arsenal will listen to offers for. Alexander Zinchenko, Fabio Vieira, remember him, and Albert Sambi Lokonga is still an Arsenal player. Zinchenko and Lokonga into the final 12 months of their contracts. Fabio Vieira has got 2 years left on his deal. OK, good stuff, guys. Thank you very much. Those guys might be on the way out from Arsenal. Kieran Tierney has already left. We will hear from him next. Plus, we'll have more on Alexander Isak and that potential interest from Liverpool. And we'll discuss, of course, Marcus Rashford and Jack Grealish. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Transfer Show. Now, the man behind me, Kieran Tierney, has said it was the easiest decision of his career to return to his boyhood club Celtic. The defender, who left for Arsenal in 2019, has agreed a new 5-year deal with the Scottish champions last month.
I remember my first interview at Arsenal. One of the media guys asked me, do you think you'll go back to Celtic? So it's something that's always kind of been spoke about with me, is when will it happen. And you never know for sure. But when the opportunity came, then it was a no-brainer.
And how big a role did Brendan Rodgers play in that, both in the communication with you to get you here and your desire to work with him again?
Yeah, he played a huge part, but ultimately as well, it's Celtic, so I was always happy with that. But being with the gaffer again, and people like John Kennedy, who I've always kept in touch with, is amazing. I've loved playing under the gaffer. Played so many games under him, was so successful. I'm so happy. A great manager, and delighted to be back with him as well.
Right, let's reflect on that. I mean, he was a very popular player at Arsenal, despite having a lot of injuries, and he came and performed right at the end of the season as well. Do you think this is a good move for everyone, this move?
Well, I think Kieran Tierney summed it up there, the easiest decision he's ever had to make. You know, when you grow up in and around Glasgow and you join the club at 7 years old and then go on to play for the first team, become an important member of the squad, made his debut 10 years ago in April 2015 against Dundee, to then get the opportunity to go back to the club that you supported as a boy, it's like a dream scenario, I guess, for him. The only probably disappointment is he probably didn't play more when he was at Arsenal due to injury. And when you spend 6 years at the Gunners, you think the chances are I'm going to leave with a little bit of silverware. Just the one FA Cup under his belt is probably the other disappointment. They didn't get more silverware whilst he was there. But no question, this is a great opportunity for him. And Celtic fans love him. And he's a great lad. And everyone you speak to at Arsenal, anytime I've interviewed Arsenal players, they always talk so highly of him. He was a popular member of that dressing room. And I'm sure he'll be a popular member of this new Celtic dressing room as well. Yeah,
I don't think many players will leave Arsenal having not played as much as he did, but still so popular, to be honest with you. A lot of people didn't really want to see him go. We're going to move on to Manchester United in a minute, but before that, I just want to touch on Alexander Isak, if I may, guys, because we've been talking about Hugo Ekitike, and the reason we moved on to Ekitike was because there was this bid for Isak, wasn't there, initially? Well, not bid, sorry, interest from Liverpool, I should say, in the Newcastle forward. How strong was that interest, do we think?
Genuine interest, genuine inquiry, genuine conversation. I think the one myth that perhaps we would put to bed is that anyone that thinks that Liverpool were trying to unsettle Alexander Isak, those kind of thought processes are wide of the mark, because what you've got at Liverpool, the sporting director, Richard Hughes, was the sporting director of Bournemouth for the best part of 15 years, so worked with Eddie Howe for a number of years on building that club into what it became, and a Premier League side. They played together at Portsmouth. They were signed on the same day by Harry Redknapp for £400,000. It was a double deal. He bought two Bournemouth players, one called Richard Hughes, one called Eddie Howe, and took them along the coast to Portsmouth. And they obviously played together at Bournemouth. So there is a long-standing relationship between Richard Hughes and Eddie Howe. Michael Edwards also was at Portsmouth as an analyst when Richard and Eddie were at the club. So the trio are close friends, and they've been close for a number of years. So any thought process that Liverpool were trying to play games or unsettle the player, completely false, you know. Was there an interest in Alexander Isak? Yes. Was there an inquiry? Yes. But was the message quite clear from Newcastle? Not for sale. Absolutely no chance we're going to sell him in this summer. And that's when Liverpool then moved on to another target who'd actually been a target throughout the course of this summer, Hugo Ekitike.
Tell you what, those three friends are doing all right in their careers, aren't they? They're different careers.
Yeah.
Let's move on then, Darms, to Manchester United and possible outgoings. So we think Mbeumo is going to be coming in the door fairly soon. There's that bomb squad, the 5 players that have basically been told they are surplus to requirements. Which of those guys do you think could be the first one out?
It's very difficult to say, but there's various talks going on behind the scenes about all of them at the moment, actually. Starting with Jadon Sancho, Juventus still want to sign Jadon Sancho. Talks ongoing between Juventus and Manchester United, and also Juventus and Sancho's representatives. No agreement on either at the moment, and it's probably thought that the talks between Juventus and the representatives are going to be more problematic because of the personal terms that are involved. As far as Juventus are concerned, they're focusing primarily at the moment on finalising a deal for Porto's Francisco Conceição, who they had on a season-long loan last season. Once they've got that sorted, it was thought it was going to be one of Conceição or Jadon Sancho. It turns out Juventus actually want to bring in both, but then to do a deal for Jadon Sancho, they would have to make sales. Timothy Weah is of interest to Olympique Marseille, and Nico Gonzalez is of interest to Inter and Atletico Madrid. If they can shift one of those, or both of those, then the Sancho deal could well be alive.
Another player to keep an eye on, Marcus Rashford. We talk about him a lot on the transfer show. Still no offers as of yet for the Manchester United man. We know that Barcelona remain interested in the player. We know that a potential problem or stumbling block could be his wages, which are significant. We know that Barcelona have to be really careful with what they do financially. I think the key thing is we know that Marcus Rashford wants Barcelona, and you can see from his Instagram, he is ready for the new season.
Shredded.
I don't know if this is a bit of a message to say, look, you know, I'm fit, I'm active, I'm good to go, come and get me, or whether that's just the young guys these days that like to tell everyone what they're doing through their social media.
Bit of both, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
it's a message, right?
He looks sharp, and I think when you've got a player who's desperate to prove people wrong, if Marcus Rashford is trying to prove people wrong, he's hungry and determined, and that could be the perfect tonic for Barcelona.
Another player is Antony, of course. Real Betis still desperate to sign Antony after the loan spell that he impressed so much last season. Permanent deal with the figures that United would want is looking kind of problematic and difficult. Another loan, that hasn't been ruled out, but I think United would want some sort of obligation attached to that because they do want to do a sale of Antony. Interesting development this week by Leverkusen, managed by Erik ten Hag. He was asked a question about whether they were interested in Antony. He said, Antony is like a son to me. Are we interested? Not at the moment, but in the future, you never know. So maybe one to watch out for, maybe later on in the window.
And another couple of players as well, just at Manchester United, while we're talking about them, Alejandro Garnacho in that five-man squad that potentially could be leaving Old Trafford. His desire to stay in the Premier League, but as of yet, no contact with Manchester United from any other Premier League side or that of any in Europe. And Rasmus Højlund, just an interesting line. He's not in the five. He wants to stay at Old Trafford. He wants to fight for his place and he wants to be a part of this new look Manchester United. AC Milan remain interested. Of course, he joined Manchester United from Atalanta in Serie A for 72 million. So therefore, he did perform well in the Italian top division. There is interest in there from Milan.
Very quickly, Hoffenheim central defender Ozan Kabak, ex-AC Milan player Massimo Oddo, former Turkey international Hasan Sass, all palindromes like Ekitike.
Brilliant. Ugo Ehiogu, I almost got there. It's almost a palindrome, isn't it? If you use the first name and the second name, do I get like half a gold star?
Go back to school.
Welcome to Match Day, Andy. Thanks. Manchester United have had a £65 million bid for Bryan Mbeumo accepted by Brentford. The Cameroon international could undergo a medical with the club before Ruben Amorim's squad fly to the United States on Tuesday for their pre-season tour. Newcastle have completed the £55 million signing of Nottingham Forest winger Anthony Elanga. The 23-year-old Sweden international will add to Eddie Howe's attacking options as they prepare to return to the Champions League following a fifth-placed Premier League finish last season. Liverpool have rejected a £58.6 million opening offer from Bayern Munich for forward Luis Diaz. The German club approached Liverpool earlier this month, but were told Diaz was not for sale. Diaz attracted interest from Manchester City last summer and also has admirers in Saudi Arabia. West Ham have signed Senegal defender El Hadji Malik Diouf from Slavia Prague for £19 million. The 20-year-old joins the Hammers on a long-term contract and is expected to meet up with the club's preseason training camp in Germany this week. Diouf was a key player for Slavia Prague when they won the Czech top-flight title last season.
Baila, baila conmigo, que yo al paso te sigo. Hey.